It was one of those things where I just wish we had more time on our side, and we didn't have that, so that sucked. And then after A1, we were supposed to go to Oakland, and we had to cancel that race, so we had a weekend off, and I actually ended up tearing my groin in that week right there, so I didn't ride in between the first, I want to say up until round 4 or 5. I wasn't riding during the week, so we were just kind of showing up and winging it on the weekends, So, as racers, we always have some sort of lingering injury, and that one just kind of hung on with me a lot longer than I anticipated. But overall, it was, like I said, a good season. I can't be mad at it. It was a good opportunity. Learned a lot, and I wish I could have had some better finishes, but that's always in hindsight. So as long as we learn from it, build, and go into next year, I'll be pretty happy with it.
Yeah, nice one. Yeah, I know that situation there with the arms, because my cousin had to basically move his clutch lever to his right hand handlebar because he couldn't move his fingers up away from it. So, he had it to that point. It's literally 6 years on from the injury, and he's only just been able to now use the clutch lever on the left side. So it's nasty stuff. But that's the sort of thing we had to have the sort of bungees on your fingers, is it, to sort of lift them up? That's the way he had anyway. So that to you, I guess, was a similar thing.
Kind of similar. Mine was just weird because the first row of bones, since I dislocated my wrist, that first little row of carpal bones right there was I broke a few of them too, but then it was dislocated. And so then once I have to pin it and make sure that doesn't move anymore, it just is so stagnant for so long that it just gets stuck and it just does not want to move. So that was like the biggest issue, was just getting some movement back, and that took forever. And then obviously the numbness too, and I didn't have feeling for months after the surgery, and that was kind of scary. I'm like, dude, if I never get the feeling back, I'm going to be pretty that's going to suck. So I was pretty nervous about that. Then it slowly started to come, and then now I actually have full feeling in my hand, and I can use everything the way I used to. It's just some limited movement. So I got lucky. Honestly, I got very lucky.
Yeah, for sure. Good stuff. So back to the Thunder Valley. I mean, Jett, 30 laps led out of 30, and it's going to be a familiar story now. Was that sort of how he was riding as well? Because you were there with the team. Was he practicing that much on the 450 outdoors as well to get used to it?
I wasn't in Florida, as much.
Oh, of course, right. Yeah.
So whenever I went there during the Daytona stretch, I went and stayed at their compound and rode down there with those guys for that week before Daytona. And he was doing some 450 stuff then, but on supercross.
Right.
Then he was riding outdoors during the 250 breaks, obviously in between. But I don't know if he had like an insane amount of time on it. But, for him, I think his, riding style, the technique, everything that he does fits a 450 really, really well. And a lot of the stuff that I had tested in supercross, they were able to use for the outdoor setup for his bike. But him and Chase are on two completely different setups, chassis-wise.
Right. Yeah,
okay. Polar opposite setups. So Chase is on last year's bike, and it was a lot different than the new frame and the new everything that Jett's on. So just a bunch of new different stuff. And dude, he just fits it really well. Everything he does is about perfect, So it's been crazy to watch. Obviously he's, you can say at this point a generational talent. He's really, really good, and he's got the credentials to back that up all day. So it's just been cool to watch. He's a good kid. That he comes from a really good family. Getting to know those guys this year was cool. I raced Jett in 21 during that series, and I got to know him a little bit, but not to the extent of obviously being around him a lot like I was this year. And dude, they're good people. Really good family. That he's got his head on straight. He knows what he wants to do, and really focused on it. Him and Hunter both. So it's just cool, to get to know them a little bit and see how this is all working for them. It's been crazy. It's very crazy, but cool.
Nice. So do you like to sort of remind them that you were the last person to beat them to a championship? Is that something that you're quite proud of?
I actually didn't even realize that till the other day. Somebody was telling me that, and I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy to think about that, I was the last one to actually even beat him in anything. It's pretty wild to think about. But he's obviously grown a lot since then. He's a completely different guy than he was then. But I can still have a hat on that. I can hang my hat on that for sure.
Yeah, all these phone calls you're making, just to say, I was the last guy.
It really was. Hey, that guy that's dominating right now? Yeah, I was the last guy to beat him. So, hey, it's cool, man. It is cool. That was a fun series. It was cool getting to race him like that. But, dude, he has been on an absolute tear since then. Just the maturity and, just how much better he's progressed. And, dude, it's crazy. It's cool to watch. It really is. From a fan's perspective, it's really cool. I'm jealous, obviously. I wish I could do some of the things he could do on a dirt bike. But he's special. Yeah, he's special.
I mean, Justin Starling was saying that because he practices with Chase Sexton a lot, and he came on our show not long ago, and he was saying that Chase has the bike set up so it's almost like he can get right over the front of the bike, but he's almost got to sort of try and pull his bars back because he goes too far over the front, and that's how he has the sort of washouts. Did you try his setup? Did you find that? I mean, how different was your setup to his?
We were a little more similar for sure. Just because the direction they went with Kenny for so long was a lot different than what Chase wanted, and how he approached the bike setup and the way he liked it. Kenny was just a little bit different in that aspect. Not good or bad, just it was just different, So whenever I came on board, I think it was good because I tried to steer the team in a lot different direction than they'd ever been before, as far as the direction they even want to go with fork and shock, chassis, where I felt like we needed some weight, where the power was on the bike, kind of everything. So me and Chase were somewhat similar. He had some different stuff in his engine than I preferred, different clutch system, different cam, different flywheel, things like that. Just stuff that he thought was a little bit better. But fork and shock wise, we were somewhat similar there at the end for sure. We ended up liking a lot of the same sort of characteristics, but I think it's more just if you're used to the Honda and the Honda chassis, you're used to the bike sitting a little more stink bug. It's a little higher in the rear. It's a little softer in the front. And that's just the way that bike naturally likes to sit. And, Chase and the Lawrence brothers, they've been on the Hondas for years, For me, coming from a Yamaha, which is, like I said, a lot different characteristic than the Honda, it was a big jump. I'm not used to the bike having so much movement in the front, the rear being so tall, and, kind of steering with the front end because it can kind of go wherever you want it to go. I mean, it can turn around a pop can. It can turn really, really tight. But I wasn't used to that. The Yamaha wasn't set a lot lower in the rear. It had an air fork, and it was always up. It never was sitting really low in the stroke. So it just took a long time, to kind of get used to that kind of feeling. Then at the end, we had a much more slower progressive fork, and it was a lot more predictable with where it was. But a lot of Chases, little crashes and tip overs and things like that. I mean, the kid's just going fast as hell. I mean, he's going so fast, and he's a bigger guy as it is anyway.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, the way that bike likes to be set up, it likes to be ran a little bit softer. You can't just run that thing super stiff. So whenever you have to run it a little bit softer, that's kind of what you run into sometimes. When you're pushing the envelope that bad and you really get into it, sometimes there's a lot of weird flex in some spots, and he would look up and be on the ground, So I could see some of the crashes. Then some of them I'm just like, dude, this kid's just he's pushing the envelope. It's just what happens sometimes. So the unfortunate side of it. But every and some of it was, a little bit of the way that bike is flexing and, how soft they have to run it in order for it to be comfy for Chase. So I'd say a little bit of both. But, his bike set up and everything, it wasn't too crazy different from mine. It honestly wasn't too bad. But before that, Kenny and his, I think were polar opposites. So we were definitely a little bit closer for sure.